Okay, so I mean, this is just like the first. Yeah, I'm gonna explain the gear and what I'm doing and stuff, and take questions and stuff. Um, so they changed the Marauder bonus, 2 piece and the 6 piece, to where each sentry increases your damage with your abilities, and the 6 piece, your sentries cast your spenders, and they do double damage. So it's like huge damage amplifiers on between the 2 piece and the 6 piece and your sentries. Now the sentries don't attack like they used to. They're not going to just constantly spend your spenders, like spam your spenders. They're only going to attack they're only going to use your spenders when you actually use them. So that's why the Krider shot is important, to be able to get the sentries to do something without costing resources. It's nice to have the Krider shot. So the Krider shot is probably going to be the best weapon. And then the rucksack, because of the way the Marauder works, each sentry is increasing your damage by 40%. Having the rucksack is an 80% damage increase, not counting the 2 additional sentries that it gets. So you go from 3 sentries to 5, that's 2 additional sentries that's like a 40% increase, and then an additional 80%. It's like a lot of damage from just the rucksack. So the combo with the Krider shot and the rucksack is probably going to be the best. Um, Other things, like I said, you don't have time to like spend on more than one ability. So the triple spender thing is like out. You're only going to have enough to generate and spend. So you have the elemental arrow to generate and then the cluster arrow to spend. The items of Reaper Wraps are good for the resources, because your sentries don't attack unless you're attacking. Having the health globes give you hatred is going to be good to allow you to use more cluster arrows. And the pride's fall as well for the resource reduction. You don't need the taskers because the sentries have their spenders dictated by your spending, so that's where the resource reduction comes in. Again, just allowing you to spam more. And you can see on my shoulders even, I switched from cooldown reduction to resource reduction, just because, again, with the changes to the sentries and having charges, so now you can start out with 3 sentries and then you wait on the cooldown to build up more charges. So the cooldown reduction it's still good. It's nice to have to be able to get that 4th one out sooner, but the front load, having the 3 out initially, is going to reduce the effectiveness of cooldown reduction. Just kind of generally, because before it was like 6 seconds per sentry. Trying to get 5 sentries, you're looking at 30 seconds. But now it's only 2 sentries that you have to wait on, because you start with the 3 charges. So you just have to kind of manage your charges and progress through the rift while watching that. You got the resource reduction, resource generation, rucksack. If you don't have a Pride's Fall, you can run the Stoner Jordan instead of the ROG and all 6-piece Marauder. That does really well. It's pretty comparable, I would say, having the resource reduction versus the damage increase. Going to end up in a similar situation. And for the toughness, I have been stacking like quite a bit of toughness, and I am using the dual unity, and I'm able to tank Jailer up to 46, 47. I think on where I'm at, doing like 50, 51, where I was just doing, the Jailer is going to one-shot me. But outside of that, the damage of the Griffs in general, like the damage that they're doing, seems to be toned down. So damage reduction is not useless. You're not just getting one-shot by everything. And so for the spec, Frost Arrow just to proc the Call of the Weak and the Bane of the Trap. The gems are the same, the Enforcer, Zay's Stone of Vengeance, and the Bane of the Trap. So using Frost Arrow to trigger that, with the Ballistics on the Hellfire Amulet, and the Rocket synergy with the Maelstrom Cold and Spitfire. Vault punishment for the extra hatred to just maintain the cluster arrow spam. And the one thing I noticed initially, like early on, when I was first running this was because the frost arrow, the chill only lasts 1 second, and that's a huge damage increase. Your Call of the Week and your Bane of the Trapped are both based on the chill. So what I was doing initially is I would put up my sentries, and then I would just spam a bunch of cluster arrows. But what I found is when you're doing that, they're not being chilled. So you want to kind of rotate between the frost arrow and the spender. You don't want to just like do a bunch of frost arrows and then a bunch of spenders. You want to go back and forth that way. Like I noticed initially when I was first doing it, I started to struggle around like 45, and then I thought about it. I was like, yeah, because your sentries are only casting the frost arrow when you actually cast it, whereas it used to be your sentries would alternate between all of them, and it would just constantly keep the call up. You didn't have to like actively trigger Call of the Week and Bane of the Trapped. It was just always happening. But yeah, with this, because they're only attacking when you do, you have to, throw in a couple frost arrows, get the Call of the Week out with your sentries, and then do the cluster kind of thing. So, other than that, that's pretty much it. I mean, the one ability here, preparation, I was running Contagion initially. I ran Grim Reaper. I ended up on Punishment. I mean, you could run a number of different things here. Still kind of like a swing slot there. That ability. Everything else you kind of need. You could go Smokescreen instead of Vault. I just really don't like Smokescreen, so just run with the Vault. And yeah, passives, just damage, custom engineering, get you that 3rd sentry out on the start. Awareness, ballistics. If you didn't have a Hellfire, then just drop steady aim for the ballistics, something like that. Yeah.